Hello, here I'm going to cover some topics from chapter 7.2, Trigonometric Functions of Angles. Before starting this, I would like you to please go and read page 483. Page 483 tells you that cosine of theta is our x value, sine of theta is our y value, tangent of theta is our sine over cosine, or the y over x. Secant of theta is 1 over x. Cosecant of theta is 1 over y, and cotangent of theta is cosine over sine, or x over y. Okay. Doing some of these problems in exercise 1 through 8, sketch each angle in standard position. Okay, so pi over 6 is the same thing as 30 degrees. We can multiply by a value of 1 so that the pi's simplify, and 180 divided by 6 is 30 degrees. So that's going to be a shallow angle. Negative pi over 6 is going to go in the opposite direction, 30 degrees. Negative 5 pi over 6. This is pi over 6 away from the axis. If this were negative 1 pi, it would be on the axis. But it's negative 1 pi, a little bit less than negative 1 pi. 30-degree reference angle. 3 pi over 2. So with 3 pi over 2, what you're doing is you're going from here to here. That's 1 pi over 2. From here to here, that's 2 pi over 2. And then from here to here, that's 3 pi over 2. Negative 3 pi over 6, we will go the opposite direction. So this is negative 1 pi over, negative 3 pi over 2. So this is negative 1 pi over 2, negative 2 pi over 2, and negative 3 pi over 2, getting us up into the top. The same thing here, if you want, you can add 2 pi to anything. So you can add 2 pi, you won't change the number. 4 over 2 is 2. So 4 pi minus 3 pi is going to be pi over 2, which is where we ended up. 4c, similarly, we can add a multiple of 2 pi. So 8 pi minus 5 pi is 3 pi over 2. So there's So there's 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. Or if you want, you can go with the original, negative 5 pi over 2. So there would be negative 1 pi over 2, negative 2 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 4 pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 2. You would still end up in the same position. .45-degree. So what we're making right angles. And so if you have a we're making right triangles. And if you have a right angle plus another angle of 45 degrees, then the third angle has to be 45 degrees. So if you have a right angle with a 45, it has to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle. That's because the sum of the interior angles of a triangle must sum to 180 degrees. So this is going to be There's your 45-degree angle. Okay. This has a base of 3 and a height of 3. This one is precise. These up here, I was freehanding. If you took out a protractor, that may not be 30 degrees. This one has to be 45, 45, 90 because the length is the same as the height. The base is the same as the height. Okay, negative 225. Negative 225, this is negative 180 minus 45 because 180 plus 45 is 225. So we're going to go negatively 180 and then minus another 45 degrees. So we're going to end up in this quadrant over here. So let's do another 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay. 315 degrees. So one way to see 315 is (270 plus 45 is 315, and 270 degrees is right here. So it's going to be, we're going to have a triangle going over in something like that. (450). So let's get this into a smaller number. So we take 450, we can add or subtract 360 degrees. Okay, gives us 90 degrees. That puts us right here where we have 0, 1. Negative 180, you're going to go negative 90, negative 180. And this point is at negative 1, 0 because we're using the unit circle. (270 degrees). There's 90, 180, 270. This point is at 0, negative 1. Okay. And 9 through 22, use the definitions, not a calculator, to evaluate the 6 trigonometric functions of each angle. If a value is undefined, then state so. So, if we're at negative pi over 2, negative pi over 2 is right there. And this is at 0, negative 1. Sine is your y, so sine of theta is 0. Cosine of, negative 1. Cosine of theta is 0. Tangent is your sine over cosine. Tangent is undefined. That's important when we're graphing later on. Cosecant is the inverse of sine. Secant is the inverse of cosine. And cotangent is your cosine over sine. Okay, so cotangent of negative pi over 2, 0. Tangent of negative pi over 2 is undefined because your sine is your y, your cosine is your x, your tangent is your y over x, and these are their reciprocals. Okay, 3 pi over 2 is going to be at the same position because this is 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. And this point is 0, negative 1. And we're going to get the same values because negative pi over 2 is the same as 3 pi over 2. So sine is your y, negative 1. Cosine is your x, 0. Then we have sine over cosine. Inverse of sine. Inverse of this is undefined. And inverse of this is 0. Negative 3 pi. Negative 3 pi is going to be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. If you like, you can add 4 pi. That point right there is when x is negative 1, y is 0. So that sine is 0, cosine is negative 1, tangent is sine over cosine. Inverse of this, undefined, inverse, and inverse. 4 pi, so we can subtract multiples of 2 pi. And this happens at 1 and 0. So sine is 0, cosine is 1, tangent is sine over cosine, cosecant is undefined, secant is 1, and cotangent is undefined. 450 degrees, okay, let's subtract 360, and this is 90 degrees. 90 degrees is at 0, 1, so sine is 1, cosine is 0, tangent is sine over cosine, undefined, secant is 1, cosecant is 1. This is why I line them up personally. This is just the way that I like to do it. Okay, inverse of this is undefined, and inverse of this is 0. Theta is negative 630, so let's add 720 to this, and I get 90. I can add 720 because that's 2 times 360. So 90 is right here. It's at 0, 1. Sine is 1, cosine is 0, tangent is undefined, and I'm just looking at these values here telling me what I need. Cosecant is the inverse of sine, secant is the inverse of cosine, and cotangent is the inverse of tangent. Okay, negative 540. So this is going to be 180. $180 is going to be right here. This is at negative 1, 0. So sine is 0, cosine is negative 1, tangent is sine over cosine, cosecant is the inverse, secant is negative 1, and cotangent is the inverse. Okay. For 23 and 24, verify algebraically that the given point in the figure indeed lies on the unit circle. And then B, evaluate the 6 trigonometric functions for the indicated angle. So if this is our drawing, this is the point. So first we need to verify that this point is on the circle. And then we need to find the 6 trig functions. So this is the formula. So what we have is and is this a true statement? X squared plus y squared, does it equal 1? Okay, well, this is going to give us and is it equal to 1? 144 plus 25 is 169. Yes, this checks. So let's call the angle theta. So let's find sine theta, cosine theta at the 6 trig values. So sine is your y value. So sine of this is negative 12 over 13. Cosine is your x value. You have negative 5 over 13. Tangent is your sine over cosine. So if I have all of sine over all of cosine, the denominators will simplify out. So it's basically just negative 12 divided by negative 5. Cosecant is the inverse of sine. Secant is the inverse of cosine. And cotangent is the inverse of tangent. Thank you very much. Please go to tutoring.